I'm here with my good friend, fantastic actress, writer, and producer, Stephanie Greenwood. Say hi, Steph.
Hello.
So you've got a show on at the Tristan Bates at the moment, don't you?
I do, yes. We open on Tuesday the 11th of Feb and run for 6 performances till Saturday.
What's it about?
So the show is called It's Beautiful Over There, and it is a one-woman show about not talking about grief.
That sounds very healthy. Is this the first time you've done the show? And if not, why did you choose to do it again?
No, so there's been, I think, a fair journey for this show that we've had. The idea for writing a show about grief started for me actually almost 5 years ago. I started writing at university, and then when a good friend of mine died, I revisited the show and rewrote it completely, obviously, because my life had drastically changed. And I then did it at the Camden Fringe in 2018, August 2018. And then a new director came on board and we tore it apart and put it back together for the good, I hope. And then took it to the Edinburgh Fringe for a full run in August 2019.
That must have been very exciting. Was it your first time at the Fringe?
It was. It was my first time at the Fringe. And the Fringe is, I think anyone who's taken a show knows that the Fringe is just nuts. I read all of the pages and pages of PDFs that the Fringe website has, and I read testimonials and advice, and nothing prepares you, I think, for being in that atmosphere for 3.5 weeks.
I went with Stephanie for one of the 4 weeks as a punter, as they say, and photographer. And it was like, I didn't have my show, but it was a very fast-paced, stressful, crazy place to be, where you walk 3 steps and are handed 25 leaflets, and you have to put in your show. You pay your venue, right? You pay your venue before any ticket sales. You have to leaflet all day, perform all night. So how did you deal with the stress of that experience, and how many jobs except acting did you have to do?
Oh, man. Well, I can say for certain I would deal with it better next time, mainly because of my next answer. I think there were just two of us went out for the Fringe, so we went up there. So it was just me and my director. So both of us were producing, we were doing all the publicity. He ended up kind of sort of co-designing the lights with the tech person that we were working with. We had a wonderful tech team and stage manager, thank goodness. But yeah, you're out there. I was, out there. My show was at 8 p.m. and I was out there from the morning till when my show went up, flyering. I would catch maybe 2 or 3 shows in the day and then keep on flyering. I think I lived mainly off chicken and mushroom pies that I got from one pie shop just off the Royal Mile, because they were £2 and easy to eat. Yeah, you are everything. You learn so much, and you are the writer, the editor, the actor, the publicist, ? The producer, everything.
So, okay, it sounds like a fairly stressful experience. Did you enjoy it though? And why are you doing the show again? What made you decide to do it in London, and why at the Tristan Bates?
Many. Those were many questions. What was the first one? Did I enjoy it? Yes, I did. I think it was the best of times. It was the worst of times is a phrase that comes to mind. I have never been so inspired to do work and to produce work. And I think especially in this industry, one of the biggest things for me that I've kind of battled with and suffered with is imposter syndrome, right? I feel so silly calling myself an actor and calling myself a writer. And once you have put on your show for 3.5 weeks, sometimes to one person, sometimes to 30 people, 40 people, however big your venue is, I came out of there going, I'm an actor. And that was an amazing feeling. I don't think it's given me a level of confidence since then that I definitely didn't have. So, and I met some really cool people also doing solo shows, which was really exciting. I definitely have a lot of thoughts for people who do solo shows, but yes, that can be another day, another
Yeah,
conversation.
maybe leave it for your second round at the Fringe. Maybe go with like a massive 15 people cast the first time to take the pressure off. So why do it again, and why at the Tristan Bates?
So I was offered a slot very kindly by the Tristan Bates, and funnily enough, my very first audition when I moved to London was actually for a show at the Tristan Bates. And I could not imagine a more horrific experience than the one that I had. So I showed up.
Pray do tell.
So I showed up. The people were very, very lovely, but it was above a pub in this, big room that they had. And they said to leave all our stuff in one room. And lots of people left bags, and we thought it was safe. It turned out to not be very safe. While I was in the audition, my phone was stolen, my wallet was stolen, a few other people had their stuff stolen as well. So it was just this horrific day where I then cried for many hours. Luckily, I still had my Oyster card, so I managed to get home. So it was kind of a nice full circle to come off this run at the Fringe with a show that I'd written, and then have the Tristan Bates say, "Hey, do you want to come and perform on this stage?" It was sort of a nice end to what was quite a disastrous first audition in London.
It definitely beats your imposter syndrome now that you have your own show on that stage, and after obviously the experience of a month at the Fringe. Let's talk imposter syndrome, because that's a real thing, especially if you're sorry, if you're a woman, if you're young, if you didn't go to drama school in London, and if you're struggling to get an agent, get a foot in the industry, what would you recommend writing and producing your own work to feel like an actor, to feel like you're doing something, progressing as an artist and putting your work out there, either in between jobs or even as a long-term solution? Your thoughts?
I mean, I think that was a very eloquently put question. So I I agree with it for all the reasons that you stated. I think if you're able to create your own work, you can give yourself a job. It gives you something to focus on. I had an audition actually just before Christmas, and because I was working on this show, I was able to go into that audition room, and I had an answer to when they always ask you, what are you working on now? And I said, oh, actually, I'm working on my one-woman show, and it's going up at this place. And it gives you a little boost in that audition room, instead of being like, and I was this person for so long saying, oh no, I'm not working on anything. And when I wasn't, I felt so creatively stifled. Yes, that's not trifled. Not trifled. Yeah. I felt very stifled creatively, because I wasn't doing anything. And I would say pick up a pen and write. Pick up a pen and create something.
The reason I ask this question is because a lot of people, usually the general public, but even people within the industry, would say that, oh, he created this show so they can act in it because no one will hire them. Or, oh, he's a jack of all trades because he's acting, directing, producing, and, doing all that stuff. Leave something for someone else. Do you know the type of people I'm referring to that, like, might get the exact opposite impression of the one you want to put forward, that you're only making this work because no one will hire you? Do you think you can give that wrong impression to professionals in the industry?
I mean, I wasn't getting work when I started rewriting this show. And I did it for a bunch of personal reasons as well. But one of them was, no one was hiring me. But I didn't have a toe in the door. No one wanted to see me. I couldn't get jobs. I couldn't get an agent. I sort of had the bare bones of a show reel. So I think if someone is thinking that, I don't know, invite them to your show and then show them how fucking good you are. I shouldn't swear. Show them how good you are.
This is not a PG interview. And if this turns into a podcast, that will not be a PG podcast. We've got Fleabag now, so that is proof that it works. Sometimes.
If one more person brings up Phoebe Waller-Bridge, I mean, amazing, and I adore Fleabag, but it's slightly frustrating when every time you're like, oh, I'm doing this thing, people are like Fleabag? I'm like, please don't compare me to her, because Phoebe Waller-Bridge is very, very brilliant, and I am me having written this first little thing. I think that people, she has paved the way. I think people do respect it more when you say, yeah, I am writing it.
Yeah.
And also when I see other women doing it, writing stuff, being in it, being brilliant, doing both of those things, my thought is, wow, can I work with them? Not, wow, they should choose one.
But also, especially if you're a woman, it's time to write your own roles, because more often than not in big TV shows, big movies, there aren't enough or well written or like challenging roles for, I mean, there are some for some age ranges and certain people. It's usually already established actors. But if you do want to play interesting parts, even when you're not famous, it's a very good way to start, I suppose. I mean, that's, I don't know.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, you can definitely write the role you want. I think also if you, I did not have much of a circle of contacts. I didn't know that many people when I started this process, and now the other creators that I've met who have written their own stuff, they're just so much more. I have a much bigger network now. So even though I've written this one thing that I have then performed, it's already led to other jobs. It's already led to me working with other people. Because I think when people see initiative and drive, they want to work with that, and it takes both of those things.
And creativity as well. It counts for something still. Okay, let's talk grief. Why grief? You said you chose the subject before the death of your friend while at uni. Was it a thesis or something? Why did you choose grief to explore? Had you already experienced a lot of grief, and was that a way of dealing with it, or was it just like a random choice you made for a first play?
No, so it actually came from the original idea came from a show I saw at the Royal Court in 2014 called Adler and Gibb, where they talk about this fact that when a person can die twice, once when they die and the second time is the last time their name is ever said out loud. And that idea really fascinated me. And I originally started writing a show about that, and then it became more about grief for many reasons. There were sort of constraints because it was an official thesis for my degree. There were lots of constraints on the show, which, you know, it had the same name, but I would say it was a very, very different show. And then my friend Lindsay Riddick died at the end of 2017, and I was rewriting my show about grief, and it was pointed out to me one day in a cafe by someone who had read the script, who went, "You've just suffered a bereavement, yes?" And I said, "Yeah, I have." And they were like, "And you've now written a show about grief, yes?" And I said, "I have done that." And he was like, "Why is your bereavement not in the show you're writing about grief?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, that makes sense." I'm not sure if I would suggest it for everyone. It's not been easy. It's not been fun. It has helped me deal with a few things. It's been very difficult. I've lost a friend along the way, but I've also had countless experiences of people coming up to me and sharing their experiences of grief, which has been really, really moving.
2 questions on that. One, so you wouldn't recommend it because you think maybe you should have grieved already, mourned already, and then revisit it at a later date where, I don't know, it doesn't maybe hurt as much, or you understand more, or, you know, you have a third person's point of view maybe. Because a lot of people would say that it's therapeutic to actually write while you're going through it. I wonder why you don't recommend it for everyone.
I suppose it's not that I don't recommend it. It's just that it was naively, I thought it was going to be easier than it was. I thought in the writing of it, I was pushed to think about some things I didn't want to think about. And, you know, they got into the play, and the play is better for it. In the performing of it, 3 weeks, talking about a friend who has died, I was like, oh, but I'm an actor. I can separate it from, like, I can separate my character from myself. Which, like, yes, I'm hoping that in this run I will do that better. But in those 3.5 weeks, by the end of it, I was sad. I was in a different place.
Yeah, that brings me to my second question. Like, how easy is it to do such a depressing, like, it is humorous. Like, I have laughed.
Please say that again. You have laughed?
I have laughed. I have laughed a lot, but I have cried more. watching your show like 4 times that I did. And I cried every time too. Like, so it's a very universal thing to cry about. So I wonder, as an actor and when on stage by yourself, because I assume it is easier to do emotional roles when you have someone to share the emotion with on stage, how easy or how hard was it to do that every day, sometimes twice a day for a month? And do you think it's going to be easier now that it's just a weekly run, or do you just flick straight back into that mental state?
So I think this is, again, the different podcast that we do where I talk about going to Edinburgh in more detail. That would be an answer, in that just to have a bigger team, I think, around you, like having a producer, having someone helping with the different aspects of the show can be really beneficial. Yeah, it's hard. And I think if I did it again, I would just know that it was going to be difficult. I think I spent the first 10 days being like, I am not affected by this because I am a professional. Like, I can come off stage and I can, leave the play on the stage. And like, no, there were nights where I would cry on stage, and not every night, but there were, and that did affect me. Actually, I had a director friend of mine recently ask me if I had a cool down post show, and I was like, no, I didn't have a cool down.
What is a cool down?
Well, like, you warm up for the show, and I suppose a cool down is just like, it's creating a space for you to be able to leave the show on the stage. And yeah, we had a bit of a chat about that, and I was like, all right, let me try and create a cool down for this run. I'm gonna go back into my dressing room, and maybe I will do some stretching, some yoga, some breathing to try and leave the show, rather than getting changed and rushing out and not thinking about it, actually being like, all right, that was a good show, that was a bad show, that was a show that made me really cry, that was a show where I felt these things, and maybe, I don't know, write them down or get them out somehow before leaving the dressing room. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And it's interesting how both before you wrote your friend into the show, and it was about confrontation then, and it was about confrontation cooling down after confronting your emotions. That was a very weird way of phrasing that. I hope you got that. But it's like dealing with the emotions to like talk about them first, but then once you talk about it, you should be able to throw them out a window, cool down, and move on with your day. Yeah. So you obviously wrote about a very personal story and relationship, and as a songwriter, when I write about such stories, somewhere at the back of my head is the question, am I actually using someone for my artistic purposes? Am I using this story? Is it mine to use, to say, to tell, Have you ever felt that way, or have you ever been accused that, directly or indirectly, that you are taking advantage of someone else's story for your show?
Yeah, I was accused very directly of that. I think first I felt a similar way as well. I think I had that feeling inside myself, especially because so I'd known Lindsay from boarding school, from sixth form, and she and I were friends because we were in maths together. We did not have that many friends in common. And when I moved back to London, she was one of the few friends that I had here. And again, we met up a lot, but we didn't have friends in common. I was not a part of her friend group, and she'd gone to uni in London and I was not a part of her friend group. So I was not known as a good friend of hers. And when I wrote about it, I did feel guilty sometimes. And then someone that we had gone to school with, I sent the script to all of her friends and the ones that I'd invited. I sent everyone the script. I approached her parents about it before I decided to do it. I talked to her parents about it. Throughout the process, I sent them the script. I asked to use Lindsay's poetry in the piece, and they had given their blessing, which to me was enough. I had a friend call me up after she read the script and tell me that she didn't want me to do the show, that it was too soon, and I'm sure that the way that I remember this conversation is different to how the conversation actually was. In my memory, it very much felt like she was saying it wasn't my story. I couldn't talk about the grief because a lot of people were suffering more than I was, which is true. But I still lost someone who was very important to me.
You can't really measure grief because we never as humans understand the depths of it, really. That's why you can't control it either. I don't think it's fair to say I mourn more than you. We all mourn in different ways, and I feel like it's really easy to be made to feel guilty by yourself even, but at the end of the day you should I think that's what I try to do, that as an artist that is your way of grieving. It's not.
I think the show is also about telling stories, and the show is about the importance of stories. And at the beginning I said it's a show about avoiding talking about grief, but obviously the main character comes around to talking about it. And I suppose, I mean, I panic called my director and went, am I a horrible person? Should we even be doing this? And the director at the time, she said, like, do you believe in the project? And I said, yeah, I think I believe in storytelling. And I want to say this. I want to tell this story. And I want to tell Lindsay's story. I want people to hear her poetry. And I think I was angry with this friend for a long time. And hurt. And I've come around to seeing, like, she was grieving as well. And I think it's okay that we disagreed. She thought I shouldn't do it, which is 100% her right. And I went ahead and did it because I thought through it and thought it was the best thing. I've had people come up to me and share their stories of loved ones who have died, or in this particular case also loved ones who have killed themselves, which sort of is also one of the themes of the play. And to have even one person come up and go, I think this is important. I'm going to go back and tell my family that I saw this and maybe we can talk about it. Like, so that happened to me. That specific conversation happened in Edinburgh and there was no feeling like that. And I thought, wow, that's, you got it. You got what I was trying to say.
Yeah, I mean, can you imagine if all the people that had gone through something really terrifying or their loved ones had just kept to themselves, how much less knowledge in this world there would be? Think documentaries, short stories, biographies, like just stories are there to be told and, help someone else along the way. And also you have a charity supporting you, a charity called Words That Carry On. That's Lindsay's name, yes?
Yeah, so the charity is called Words That Carry On, and it was set up by her parents, by Lindsay's friends, and it is fundraising for research into personality disorders and autism. So they've actually just reached their goal of £50,000, and now they have extended that goal to £100,000. And so we will be collecting donations, and we're really also just trying to spread the word about, because they're doing really wonderful work and they're doing it in Lindsay's name. So yeah.
Thank you for sharing. Before I ask you my last question, where can people buy tickets? Where can they find you on the socials? And
Yes, the socials, my favorite. Well, first of all, tickets. If you want to come, please come and bring 100 of your closest friends. You can find...
What's the capacity of that theatre?
If people really did that, I would just be thrilled.
We have 2 stools.
You can buy tickets on the Tristan Bates website. The show is called It's Beautiful over there. I am found on Twitter and Instagram at Steph M. Greenwood, and then also my theatre company. Oh, we didn't talk about my theatre company that's producing the show is at Very Rascals on Instagram and Twitter.
Okay, I did say it was going to be my last question, but now that you mentioned your theatre company, I also forgot to ask you about your team, who's involved, and if you have any other projects on the pipeline.
Yes, there is a wonderful team, and without whom I could not have done this. So my wonderful director, John Michael MacDonald, came on board after the Camden Fringe and helped me tear the show apart and put it back together and make it into really what I wanted it to be, which was just a priceless experience. And I can never thank him enough for really pushing me to say the things that I wanted to say but couldn't. And then this is being co-produced by Charlotte Keith, who is also my co-founder of Very Rascals. So Charlotte is also an actress and a writer herself. So once we have done this show, we are very excited to go right into our next project, which is Charlotte's first play, and she is writing about female spies in the Second World War.
Ooh, can I be in it, please? Okay, now, promise, last question. What would your advice be for people thinking about or being in the process of creating their own show, be that film or stage, be that festivals or London?
I think, so in terms of solo shows, something was said to me that I understand now and didn't understand at the time, is that creating a solo show is incredibly lonely, and being up on stage is lonely. And you need to have people around you who understand that and can support you through that. The second is, if you are writing, have the people that you trust. You trust their opinion. You trust them to tell you when it's shit, and when it's good, you can believe them. Have those people and filter out the rest of it. And then the last one, my piece of advice, which I need to take, is don't be too hard on yourself. It's so easy to feel like everyone knows what they're doing and everyone's doing it brilliantly. And I mean, when I went up to the Fringe, I didn't have a clue. I mean, I really was learning as I go. And obviously you can read and you can prepare yourself and you can organize. But at the end of the day, like, there is stuff will come up. You don't know until you've done it. And that's fine. And again, like doing this in London, there were things we didn't know until we'd done it. And that's okay. That's how you learn, and that's how, you know, it will be better next time. It will be easier next time. And yeah, I would say just don't be hard on yourself, which I am forever failing at.
You most certainly are. Well, let's end on this positive note. And that was a very pleasant interview, my first one. You have been listening to Eleonora Kouneni and Stephanie Greenwood, and the show we have been talking about that we need to plug one more time is It's Beautiful Over There, which is showing at the Tristan Bates between the 11th and 15th of February. Am I right?
Yes, you are. Come find us.
Last words for the interview. Not ever.
Pineapple? I don't know what
juice.
No, just the pineapple.
Just the pineapple. Okay. I'll probably cut this.
Don't cut it. It's funny.
Okay, fine. All right. Goodbye.
What? we are taking names for our podcast.
Oh yes, we are. Pineapple and cod.
What? No, that's a terrible name.
It has to be two names.
Why?
Because we're two people.
Well, what if we want to add a third person?
It will be pineapple, cod, and lentils.
No, wait, this is a terrible name for a podcast. Can't we call it like the name of our street?
No,
really
you don't want to divulge your address to the internet. Okay, goodbye now.
Yes, thank you so much.